Greetings, and welcome to this week's episode of Bigfoot for Breakfast, home of the mysterious and the macabre, where we sit in the basement every week, challenging conventional thought. We are your hosts,
Samantha Carter
and Sarah Jones, and we are so happy that you're back to hear another episode. We're getting a little closer to Halloween, and we have some pretty creepy stuff coming up in the next few weeks that we're really excited about. So be sure to come back and check them out. While you're at it in your podcast app, make sure that you press the subscribe button so you can be notified every time there's a new episode, which we put out every Monday. If you get time, leave us a rating on the Apple Podcast app and a review if you feel so inclined. It really helps us out, and it helps other people find the show more easily, and we really appreciate that.
So this past weekend, we got to spend a little time at a really cool Halloween festival in Ottumwa, Iowa called Halloween-a-Palooza. We had a really great time, so if you've never been, you should really check it out next year. Especially if you're a horror movie fan. They had some crazy stuff. Lots of vendors with artwork, Halloween crafts and costume contests, a zombie walk, and they always have a special guest. This year was the actual good guy doll from the Child's Play franchise, along with Alex Vincent, who played cute little Andy. It was pretty cool, and we actually met some really cool people, so it was a good time.
Speaking of people that we met, we talked quite a bit with the host of another podcast out of Kansas City, Missouri called Nightmare Junkhead, where they do reviews, interviews, and commentary on horror films, and he was cool enough to tell us a quick story about a questionable cryptid that he came across one night in Kansas. And in the spirit of cryptids, which happens to be the theme of the episode today, we'll be playing the story at the end of the episode. He was really personable and he was a funny guy, so he made the creepy encounter into quite a comical tale, and we think you'll really enjoy it. So stay with us.
It was foggy out and I was a little bit afraid. And this big thing come just like trucking, just trucking down the road at me, man. I looked at it and I'm like, and I got back in the car. And before I peeled off, that thing scratched the back of the car.
So today we're going to graze on one of my favorite cryptid topics, the werewolf.
Like cows, will graze.
Perhaps the most famous of American werewolf tales, the Beast of Bray Road has created controversy and argument among cryptozoologists since the 1990s, when the story of these sightings gained popularity. The arguments aren't so much over whether or not the beast exists, but over what the beast might actually be.
That's right. The debate lies in the nature of the beast, having been titled both a werewolf by locals and Bigfoot by cryptozoologists. Some stories describe a canine-like humanoid or a hairy humanoid. We could argue the possibility of shapeshifters and or Bigfoot.
Either way, no matter what it is, we can't really dispute the fact that there are so many claims, and therefore we are intrigued. Something weird is lurking along the 4-mile stretch that is Bray Road in Wisconsin.
Okay, to give you a little layout of the area, Bray Road lies somewhere near Elkhorn and Delavan, Wisconsin. It's a widely known rumor that the moon is made of cheese. Therefore, one can surmise that Wisconsin is probably the most appropriate place to find a werewolf.
Get it? Because the moon and werewolves?
It's appropriate because Wisconsin is known to produce more than 13.5 billion kilograms of milk every year and over 1 billion kilograms of cheese, which is a lot.
Fun fact, Green Bay Packers fans are known as cheeseheads.
For those who may be somewhat unfamiliar with Wisconsin, it's a moderately sized state that is extremely forested with over 16 million acres belonging to the wildlife, and this covers almost half of the entire state. Bray Road is a county road that lies along the southwest part of the state, just west of Elkhorn and about 40 miles south of Milwaukee. It's a pretty obscure area. It kind of looks like rural country out of town, with houses and small farms scattered down the road here and there. No really close neighbors. It's just kind of your basic country road, which is easy for us to imagine being from the Midwest.
We'll put a little bit of a disclaimer in here. Apparently from our readings, Bray Road is heavily patrolled due to people visiting the road at night because of the legend. They seem to have had some issues in the past with people going onto landowners' property, messing around, trying to spot the beast, and the locals aren't really loving it. So before you decide to take a drive down to Bray Road, we recommend just leaving it at a drive and not doing so much stopping or getting out in case you might be obscuring traffic or trespassing. We don't want to encourage any inconsiderate behavior.
So be good, guys.
And don't get dead.
Yeah, especially that. Don't get dead. A little bit of history will tell us that Wisconsin would be a great place to find an obscure monster such as a werewolf or whatever it is.
When Wisconsin was first being settled in the 1800s, the mix of people was mostly composed of German, Dutch, Scandinavians, and Belgians. A lot of these cultures were known to tell a lot of werewolf stories. This is not us discounting sightings or encounters with the beast in any way. We're simply stating that it isn't super surprising that when a strange creature was being sighted, that it would quickly be named a werewolf. What is surprising, though, is the fact that these sightings go back to the beginning of the settlement of Wisconsin, when they described that there was a creature who would attack people and animals and then immediately vanish.
It seems that sightings of the creature plague Wisconsin throughout its entire history, and the accounts are all so incredibly similar that it seems unlikely for it to be different animals. The descriptions usually put the creature being tall, human-like, covered in hair, with a head like a canine.
Like we said, the sightings happened and were recorded throughout the history of Wisconsin, but they really picked up steam in the late 80s and early 90s and have persisted to this day. So let's talk witness accounts.
We're going to touch on as many specific encounters as possible, but by no means can we say that this is all of the encounters with the beast. But these are probably the most well known. So let's start with the earliest report to my knowledge, which was reported in 1936 by a local man named Mark Shackleman, a night watchman at St. Coletta Convent. A little bit cliche.
No.
He was driving on the highway just east of Jefferson County when he saw someone or something standing near a close-by burial mound. As he got closer, he could see that it didn't appear to be human, but he wasn't quite sure what it was. As he got even closer, the creature came into view more clearly. He described the beast as being about 7 feet tall and estimates that it weighed around 500 pounds. The beast of Bray Road appeared to be digging at a mound with shriveled fingers. Shackleman reported that it was covered in dark fur, and he noticed a strong, repugnant smell, which he described as rotting meat. He panicked and fled the strange beast. Days later, he got up the nerve to return to the area, and by his account, the beast was still there. This time, he was able to get a really good look at its wolf-like face, and he says its hands were human, with what he described as a twisted thumb. Shackleman said that the beast made a grunting sound, which he heard to sound like a Gadara. After what he said was a several-minute stare-down with the beast, it disappeared into the nearby woods.
For those who may be unfamiliar, in the Bible, Matthew, Mark, and Luke mention the city of Gadara, in which Jesus encountered men who are possessed by demons, which introduces another possible theory that this beast could be a demonic presence. But let's move forward.
In 1972, there was a report made to Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources of a large creature which tried to break into a house in the area and caused harm to a farm animal in the form of a large gash.
Another sighting reported in 1989 was that of 24-year-old Lorraine Andreezy, who was driving home from work around 2 a.m. on Bray Road when she saw something that appeared to be crouching on the side of the road. Thinking it was a man, she slowed her car to get a better look. What she saw terrified her. She said that at one point she was within 6 feet of the beast. She reported that she saw it for about 45 seconds and described it as being a large, brownish, gray-haired covered creature. It had large fangs, pointed ears, and a face like a wolf. Andreezy noted that the beast was built very broad like a bodybuilder and looked very powerful. When the tabloids started printing photos of the beast and making the story sound a lot more dramatic than what they actually were, she publicly discounted them and called them ridiculous.
I can totally agree with her, because the stories and happenings with the beast of Bray Road are interesting enough without blowing it way out of proportion just to make it more incredible. I feel like the papers who do things like this only discredit the witnesses, who are actually only trying to tell about what they saw and not make it more sensational.
In 1990, Mike Etten reports having seen a giant wolf-like beast with glowing reddish-orange eyes sitting back on its haunches, eating what appeared to be roadkill. He describes that he was eating this animal and holding his prey with his palms facing upward, which is really unnatural for most predators.
So we're seeing a theme here, right? That, like, it only comes out to eat the dead stuff on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm. Which is, honestly, eating the roadkill is unnatural for a predator. I mean, that's scavenger behavior.
Yeah, they
Whereas-
mentioned that at one point, that it was
Yeah.
odd that it was more of a scavenger-like creature than for being a wolf.
Not out hunting deer, which you know that the deer population in Wisconsin is ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely. So that is kind of strange. In December of 1990, 11-year-old Heather Bowie was playing in a cornfield near Bray Road with her friends. Near dusk, the kids are ready to head home when they notice the creature. They thought at first that it was a large dog, so they began to walk closer to the animal. It surprised them by standing upright on its hind legs and chasing them to the edge of the corn. Surprise! Once reaching the corn and once the children escaped into the open field, the beast simply stopped. It remained there, watching them from between the rows.
It wants you too, Malachi. In 1999, there were quite a few recorded sightings. On October 31st, Dorothy Gibson, whose voice you heard in the news clip at the beginning of the episode, was driving at night on Bray Road near Delvin when she felt a bump. Thinking that she may have hit something, she stopped and got out of her car. I'm going to stop here and say one thing. No.
No.
Nah. If you are driving alone in the night on a lonely stretch of country highway and you hit an unknown creature with your car, do not pull the car over and get out of it in order to inspect said creature. Dorothy, I know you meant well, and I'm sure she was checking for signs of life so that maybe she could help, but have you never seen every horror movie made? Stay in your car. She saw nothing behind the car, but as she looked around approximately 50 feet away, Gibson saw a very large, bizarre-looking creature running straight at her. See?
This is why you don't get out of the car. You stay in there.
She quickly got back into the car. Good girl.
Let this be a lesson to you.
And she started to drive off. The beast jumped onto the trunk of the vehicle, but quickly slipped on the wet metal and fell off onto the pavement as she sped off. Gibson told a neighbor about what had happened, and she showed him some deep scratches on her car trunk that she said resembled large claw marks.
Brooklyn this week.
She got a pocket car in the car park. Wear your khakis.
Yeah.
Lost my khakis.
Oh, not khakis.
No, not khakis.
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 Later, she went back to the same place with her neighbor, and the beast was still there.
It likes to hang out for a while.
They don't.
No.
They didn't stick around at all to get a better look.
Whenever I heard this story, I thought about the creature from Jeepers Creepers. How it like jumps on the cars and like punches through the car, and I felt really bad for Dorothy Gibson because if a creature jumped on my car, that would be it. This is the end. It wants my eyes.
Be eating you.
This particular interaction catapulted. I don't really know why I went.
Catapulted to the car park with my khakis.
Lordy. This particular interaction catapulted the Beast of Bray Road to the national news. Doris Dean reported the incident to the police, and the word got around to local reporter Linda Godfrey. Of course, Linda Godfrey is now extremely well known and has written several books about American monsters focused primarily in the upper Midwest.
In 1993, Inside Edition did a television piece on the beast in which they interviewed a few eyewitnesses.
There were many other accounts reported in the 1990s, but let's skip ahead a little. In July of 2004, Katie Zahn reported that she and 3 friends were out in a field when they began hearing noises like trees rustling from what she described as 100 or so yards away. She states that they saw a creature walking towards them on its hind legs, moving as a human would, but it looked like a large dog or wolf. They quickly ran to their nearby cars and drove away.
On October 30th of 2004, around 8:30 p.m., an unnamed woman who was about 45 years of age at the time was driving up and down the road with her 14-year-old daughter and a friend in hopes of catching a glimpse of the beast. I want to touch on the fact that this witness is a nurse, so she has some knowledge of anatomy and physiology, and the account we're going to review is credited to Linda Godfrey via the creature sightings log. The witness accounts that she was driving slower than the posted speed limit on Bray Road. She says something popped out of the corn about 2 miles down the road. She describes the creature as looking very aggressive. The witness states, "We all screamed very loud. I put my foot on the gas and we went away as fast as we could and did not go back. I was a wreck. I was shaking. What I saw doesn't make sense. A quadruped has its legs backward for speed and agility, but this creature had large, powerful thigh muscles and its knee was backwards. Linda notes in her blog that the witnesses often describe the knees as backwards, not realizing that a canine heel is at approximately the same height as our knee. The witness describes it as covered in fur, with heavier fur on its back. It was dark in color, but tipped a silvery gray. It was in the oncoming lane of traffic, so they were less than 9 feet away maximum. It was not a person in a suit. It was way too tall, about 7 feet, way too brawny, and its eyes were glittery and dark. They had no sclera or whites like a human eye in a mask would have. Its head was big, almost too big for its body. It had an elongated snout but pointy, not rounded like a lab's. It stood there, and then it hunched over into an aggressive stance. Its arms were bent at the elbow and forward. I couldn't see the hands. The ears were pointed and shaped like a German shepherd's, but laid back. So she compares what she saw to a sketch that Linda has on her blog of an indigenous dog man. The musculature on the legs was heavier than the drawing, though. You definitely should check out the Creature Log blog. Look at some of the drawings, and some of the witness accounts are also written out on there. So back to her story, she says, it was looking right at me. I felt it was aggressive and would defend itself viciously. This wasn't a dog or a wolf. It had canine features, but it was something else. Something other. She says they had a feeling that they were not safe, and even though they had cameras all over the car because they had gone out searching for the beast, they didn't bother getting a picture. When they saw it, they just screamed in unison and floored it.
Kind of makes me think of, paranormal investigations when people are like, what do you do when you see a ghost? I'm like, I've never seen a ghost. If I actually saw a ghost, it would scare the hell out of me.
Probably scream and run.
I would be terrified. So it's really funny, like, you go out looking for these things, but for real, I mean, holy cow.
Yeah.
If you really saw
the audio would sound like beep, beep, beep.
a lot of footsteps scurrying away. Okay, so I'm not sure that I would have sat there long enough to get a photo either. So even though they went out looking for this, I don't blame them, because you don't really expect to actually see the things. To see the things.
To see the things.
Another such account occurred on April 25th, 2006, near Powers Lake in Kenosha County, Wisconsin. This account is credited to the same source. According to the Creature Log, this witness reports to have sighted the man-wolf 3 times. 2 times in mid-February, and then again April 25th, while making his drive to work early in the morning. The creature was spotted approximately at 3 a.m., and on the same 3 to 6 mile stretch of road on each account. He describes that he first observed the creature crouching in the ditch. It then rose to stand on 2 legs, arms at its side, much like a human's. According to the witness who reports to have observed it at close range and in several positions, the beast closely resembles the sketch on the Creature Log blog. The tail is longer and fuller, about 18 inches, he estimates. He has seen the creature cross the road on all 4s as well, and estimates that it was at least 5 feet long from nose to rump, and its back stood almost 3 feet off the ground. It appeared unafraid of him and stared at him with yellow glowing eyes. When it stood, it appeared slightly hunched over, similar to what other witnesses have described.
Steve Kruger reports that in November of 2006, while working under contract with the DNR, he was picking up roadkill along the highway at 1 a.m. He collected a specimen and was sitting alongside the road in the cab of the truck doing paperwork when he felt the truck shaking. He looked in the rearview mirror and states that he saw a large animal with the body of a bear and the head of a wolf with pointy ears reaching into the bed of his truck where the roadkill was.
I looked at it, it's fine.
Still really strange though, because there's that scavenger behavior again. He went out of his way to get into the truck to get the already dead animal instead of being out in the wilderness hunting something.
Maybe he does have human-like qualities and he's a pacifist. He never actually killed anyone. I mean, that we know of.
Hippie.
So we have all of these witness sightings, and this isn't anywhere near all of them. Many of the people that we just mentioned here were featured in an episode of Monster Quest a while back when they were investigating Bray Road themselves. Being a bigger network, they subjected anyone who appeared on the show as a witness to a lie detector test. And they all passed. They all passed!
So it's all a conspiracy by government agents who are trained in polygraph examinations.
No, it was real.
It was real. So what is it about this particular area that would attract such a beast?
What is so special? What's so special about you, Bray
Other
Road?
than the excess roadkill.
What makes me really mad about this is that there's no werewolves on Jake.
But also, I mean, we have lots of roadkill.
We have roadkill. Why don't you come down here?
Where's my werewolf?
We'd be excited. We'd be really excited.
Where's my werewolf?
You can cut that.
We'll see.
In the immediate area, the highway is surrounded by open farmland. Traveling just a few miles north of Elkhorn, however, you find acres of dense forest, rich with deer and other prey which could support a large predator. And then there's the highway, which provides ample supplies of roadkill. The roadkill, as we've mentioned, is a common element in many witness accounts. It's strange, however, as we said before, that the beast would behave more as a scavenger than a hunter, which presents the mange bear theory. Mange bear?
Man, bear, pig.
Man, bear, pig. Man, bear, pig. Nearby Kettle Moraine State Forest is a 20,000 acre reserve. There have been no recorded black bear or wolf populations in the area for a century. However, with the efforts to repopulate the wolves into surrounding areas, including northern Wisconsin, one could make its way into the area. As far as known local species go, the size of the beast described by the witnesses makes it far too big to be a coyote.
Let's venture away from Bray Road for a moment to, say, Michigan, where numerous accounts of the Michigan Dog Man have been reported. Similar in description to the creature seen hunting Bray Road, the Michigan Dog Man has also gained quite a following. While the descriptions vary some, which leads some to believe that it's multiple specimens who are being seen, the general idea is the same. And I like the beast. I like him.
We're friends.
And like the Beast of Bray Road, these accounts spread over long periods of time. A man named Robert Fortney claimed that in 1938, at the age of 17, he was standing near the Muskegon River in Paris, Michigan, when he was confronted by a massive black dog. He swore the beast reared up on its hind legs and stared him down with piercing blue eyes. Mean muggin'.
He was sitting pretty.
He wanted a treat. Terrified, he shot him. Jesus. Terrified, he shot at the creature and it quickly fled. Fortney remained chilled by the event for years to come and didn't report this encounter until 49 years later. He stated, "It may be that I was just scared, but I swear that dog was smiling at me." I tell you what, I can't understand these people. I cannot understand why these people don't run straight the hell home and tell people that they just saw a dog man smiling at them. And like, how do you keep a secret like that? I wouldn't be able to go home and go to my room and just not tell anyone.
Well, think of how many of those people would be dismissed as like crazy people.
I'd tell everybody. Hear ye, hear ye.
You'll flip your wigs. In 1993, a 13-year-old girl named Courtney, living in Reed City, Michigan, snuck out behind her family's house for a cigarette and got the scare of her life. She claimed that a glint of light seeping out from the planks of an old abandoned barn, she followed its movement. She realized that the 6-foot-tall thing that was hiding in the barn had the head of a dog, and it was staring right at her. She ran away terrified. Her neighbor later confirmed that they had seen a creature in the barn as well. They described the animal lurking in the barn as a buffalo-sized dog.
In May of 2006, a man named Ron describes driving on an isolated road in the Lansing, Michigan area, where he slowed down for what he thought was a deer. He reports that all of a sudden a human-like hand, except much larger than a normal man's hand, reached over the edge of the hill and this huge silhouette came into view. What came out of the darkened hillside was a massive man with a wolf-like face. It was much larger than a normal man, and his eyes reflected in my headlights. It just sat there and looked across the field on the other side of the road, and then it very calmly turned its head and looked right at me.
So, what I picture when they talk about how the hand came up first is Freddie Mercury coming up onto the stage on an elevator.
That's what I pictured. Because I'm like, what do they mean by, like, did it grab the whole hill? And, like, he saw the hand over the hill and then it pulled itself up.
And then the rest of it followed.
I'm with you. All right.
The Gable film, which was said to be grainy Super 8 video footage of the Dog Man, was captured in the 70s, has been a source of controversy for decades. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you take a look at the YouTube and see what you think. From what we can gather, it's a short video of what looks to be a large, hair-covered animal running toward the cameraman on all fours. The fact that the creature is moving quickly and the film quality is not great doesn't give us much for clear visual. Obviously, this has created a lot of skeptics because it's not good proof and a lot of people claim it's a bear attack, and that's that.
I'm not going to speculate on what I think it is because in all honesty, I watched the video and I can't tell.
I really couldn't either, and what I would have expected for the beast based on the witness accounts is for it to be on two legs.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you look at the video, it really could be any large animal. It's kind of like the Bigfoot videos where people enhance, and it's still just so pixelated and crappy that you can't see anything, and so you might as well not even waste your time trying to figure out what it is.
Bigfoot is blurry.
Bigfoot just is blurry. Werewolf or canid-like beasts stories have been recorded throughout history and worldwide. While the concept of werewolves is widely dismissed among cryptozoologists, there are some investigators with interesting theories on the subject. Some researchers think that these sightings may represent a hidden species of hyper-intelligent wild dogs that evolved to become bipedal, and therefore these dogs coincidentally ended up looking something like a cross between a person and a wolf. Other theories, considered fringe cryptozoology, present that difficult-to-explain creatures such as the werewolf are native to parallel dimension of reality and are merely visiting this one. I think it's just Michael J. Fox.
Could it be that these are a canid cousin of the Sasquatch?
A lesser known or less widely embraced theory is that these human-animal hybrids are the subject of alien experiments, and that's how they've come by their shape-shifting abilities. I'm not going to delve too deeply into the extraterrestrial theories in this episode. We'll save that for another day. But it is talked about by a few, so we thought it best to throw that one in there.
As far as American werewolf lore goes, it doesn't end with the Beast of Bray Road. Nor did it begin there. And one of the creepiest, most unexplained areas that exists in America still lies in the heart of Utah on Sherman Ranch. Otherwise known as Skinwalker Ranch, this place really deserves and could fully support its own episode, as other podcasters have done in the past, but we will dive into that just a little bit here. Odd, wolf-like cryptids are not the only thing commonly reported here. The Sherman family moved to the ranch in the 90s and quickly began to experience all that was bizarre and different about the place. The Shermans and many, many others who have visited the area commonly reported UFO-like activity, mysterious doorways with light pouring out of them and then later disappearing, disappearances, and strange surgical-like mutilation of cattle, and yes, wolf-like creatures that exhibit some very strange abnormal behavior. The difference is the experiences at Skinwalker Ranch go way beyond just sightings. These were often actual interactions, and people who were involved in these interactions firmly believed that the wolves were smart, often exhibiting behavior that was far more intelligent and intuitive than any other animal that they had seen. Many report that they felt the wolves were reading their minds and even exhibiting some unnatural influence over them. Can we spend the night there?
Not anymore. It sounded like they went through phases just after the Shermans moved out that they would let people kind of come and stay, but that was like a really short amount of time. And then some guy bought it because he was interested in the ranch. And he's basically just used it for his own personal research and study, and nobody's allowed to go on there at all anymore. So that sucks.
Dream crusher.
I know. We should have been millionaires and can just buy a sweet ranch with werewolves and UFOs. Anyway, the most popular story took place soon after the Shermans moved in. They brought their cattle in with them from New Mexico, and as they were unloading and sorting the cows, the family noticed a large wolf in the distance. This was pretty weird because wolves aren't native to Utah, so when the wolf began trotting toward them, the family was obviously a bit concerned about its intentions. The wolf sauntered up, acted more curious than aggressive, and even let the astonished family of humans briefly pet him. After a while, one of the small calves stuck its head through the fence, and the wolf calmly walked up and firmly put the calf's head in its mouth, attempting to kill it. Now, from what I read, the cattle that the Shermans owned weren't just ordinary cattle. These were super high-priced cattle, so losing a calf was a really big deal. Terry Sherman and his son grabbed their rifles and shot the wolf several times at close range before it finally let go of the calf. It slowly turned to stare at them. The men shot the wolf some more, and then the wolf finally turned and ran in the other direction. It seemed annoyed, but not distressed in any way by the several bullets that had just entered its body.
Because they were not silver several bullets.
Right. It just stung a little. Sherman and his son tracked and followed the wolf, wanting to be sure that they had killed it so that it wouldn't later return to kill their expensive cattle. They found no trace of the wolf, no blood that should have been plentiful.
So while there are some similarities between Bray Road and Skinwalker Ranch, there are also a lot of differences, I think. The Skinwalkers are said to be shapeshifters, and people often report seeing them do this. They are also said to be able to influence your mind and are very intelligent. The Navajo in the area have lots of stories centered around skinwalkers and will put a person through rituals after encountering a skinwalker because apparently the skinwalker will remember them and come back for them many times in order to steal their bodies or bring death and bad omens to the person. Skinwalkers can be seen as many things like coyotes, foxes, eagles, wolves, and so on. I'm guessing that they're more noticeable in wolf form simply due to the fact that wolves are not exactly common in most of America, save for the Northwest, where a lot of these other animals are not really out of place all over. Other legends say that skinwalkers can mimic the faces of people who are familiar to you, and people often report feeling as though creatures were able to tell what they are thinking and even felt like they had some level of control over them. Several stories from Skinwalker Ranch and around the area of Utah have also reported these things in particular.
So here's the absolute most creepy thing that I can possibly imagine from these reports. The way that they move. It seems to be widely reported that one notably odd thing that immediately makes a wolf stand out as a possible skinwalker is the odd and very awkward way that they are sometimes said to move. I don't remember reading this at all about the Bray Road beast. They move as though they don't belong in their bodies. There's one story in particular that I think illustrates this pretty well.
My uncle is Mexican and Native American. This happened in the Mojave Desert in Southern California. He was driving around with his girlfriend late at night and they saw something that looked like a huge black dog on the side of the road. He slowed down and the dog began crossing the road. Instead of walking like a normal dog, this thing moved like a toy rocking horse. He said it stopped in the middle of the road and stared right at them, and its eyes had a red glow.
There are also reports that state that they are seen walking on their hind legs, which would be like the beast of Bray Road, insanely muscular, and make sounds that are eerily human and animalistic at the same time.
In this area of Utah are several Native American reservations that members of the Ute tribe call home, and these people have a long-standing history here. These stories, sightings, and experiences regarding the so-called skinwalkers are far from new to them. The tribe has stories of the skinwalkers inhabiting this area dating back to the 1800s. The Utes speak of skinwalkers being evil and very, very powerful creatures who are able to take the form of various animals. They say that the skinwalkers were once people who have done evil in their lives, and this is pretty much the only thing that is known about them outside of those privy to Native American history and lore. If you know anything about the Native American culture, they aren't usually readily eager to share their own legends and knowledge with those outside of the tribe. They keep things mostly to themselves, and it's said that the people who have seen and believe fully in these creatures are pretty fearful when it comes to discussing it.
I have read a couple of different things about that. One tribe will say, or one writing, I guess, will say that they're just people who have done wrong, and all of those people turn into skinwalkers. But then another writing said that it was more specifically witch doctors who have gone bad and used their magic against other people in various ways to harm them. And those are the people who end up sentenced to the skinwalker way of life for all of eternity.
So in most of those cases, it's considered a curse.
Yeah.
A punishment.
It seems to be so.
In Twilight, though, it's a rite of passage.
We don't even talk about Twilight
like
in this
the
house.
Cool kids in Twilight get to turn into wolves.
I'm gonna say it, I don't like Twilight. It's the worst.
That's fair.
I probably just alienated half of our listener base. Sam likes it, though. I think that sparkly vampires are an atrocity.
I think anything that sparkles is fabulous.
I hate glitter.
It's really hard to get out of the carpet.
It's hard to get out of everything. Glitter is the devil. So obviously, the Beast of Bray Road isn't the only report of canine or wolf-like cryptids throughout America and likely won't be the last. But what are the connections? The reports within certain areas seem to be all very similar to one another and similar at best to other accounts in other parts of the country. But there are a lot of things that don't correlate too. Where in Utah, there's the presence of the skinwalkers as canid creatures that are abnormally eerie and don't seem to fear humans. The Beast of Bray Road sounds physically similar, but seems to withdraw from human presence. Extended interactions with the beast don't seem to happen, where many have reported long visits from the skinwalker in which it almost appeared to be friendly. Almost. The skinwalkers are reported as being wolf-like, but some report them as being almost hairless. Some say it depends on which shape-shifting form they happen to be in at the time of the sighting. The Beast of Bray Road always seems to be reported as being very hairy and will chase humans if they happen to get too close to them. So who knows? A lot of people seem to try to compare the two, but personally I think that they are two entirely different entities that happen to both be canid.
Yeah, one of them seems to be like a highly intelligent, actual animal-like wolf.
Yeah.
And the other one is more of a humanoid scavenger, really.
Yeah, there's not really any intention from the Beast of Bray Road, it seems like, where with the skinwalkers, they're trying to steal your soul or your skin.
Maybe it's like two different either species or tribes, I guess, that developed differently.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that they're not one and the same. There's a lot of comparisons that make them, that try to really put them in the same category, but I don't think that they are. I think they're entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
Personal opinions.
Well, that concludes this week's episode of Bigfoot for Breakfast. Although this account isn't Beast of Bray Road related, it is right up the alley of the cryptid category, so we're going to play the witness encounter of Genius McGee from the popular podcast The Nightmare Junkhead, the Nerds of Nostalgia, and the Media Rewind podcast. I don't think I've ever heard anyone tell a cryptid story in such a funny way. He took it much better than I would have. I'm guessing that having a lot of knowledge when it comes to horror films and the desensitization that it helps a person achieve probably helped him think it through. Anyway, here's Genius McGee's crazy story.
So, one late night in Kansas City on 18th Street Expressway, which is odd because it's right off the highway and it's a busy little expressway type thing. Not as busy as a normal highway. But I'm driving out. Just got finished a movie. And it wasn't even, there was stuff on my mind or anything like that. It was just a regular movie. And we're driving, and I see this roadkill off the side of the road. Normally, you don't think anything of it. You look at it like, oh, what poor animal just got splattered, right? Well, so I'm looking at it, and it's moving as I see it from far away. Mind you, I'm far enough to I can see it, but still like enough to like, what is that, trying to make it out? And as we get closer, as the lights start to hit the roadkill, this thing rears up out from the underbelly of the roadkill, and the best way I could describe it, you remember Ren from Ren and Stimpy? Remember Ren and Stimpy? Okay, so Ren, how he was kind of short, like the bald, hairless chihuahua with a big head and a really skinny body. Well, it looked like that when it reared up, but it had these rows of sharp teeth, and we locked eyes and it just went, it just snarled, and it had still meat hanging down from his mouth. And I go, shit! I'm screaming, I'm honking on the horn. It turns and it hops away like a kangaroo on his haunches, just and just kind of like had these little like almost T-Rexian claws, and it's like and just hopped away. I flipped out. I almost wrecked my car. I'm like, shit! And I don't know what I saw. All I know is I saw something weird. And it was like at night, but like 9 o'clock. We were still going to go do something else afterwards. And I'm like, I'm taking you home. I'm done with this. Because, in horror, it helps. Horror fans are the best because we know, I'm not going to that murder barn all the way in the car. So we have better rules. If I wasn't so apt to not mess with it, I'd probably, let's go see what it is. Because there's all these grain silos and stuff there. And I thought maybe it was a rat, but not on its haunches and not hairless. So the freakiest thing that I've seen, and it still haunts me to this day. By the way, I'm Genius McGee, Kansas City, co-host of the Nerds of Nostalgia, the Nightmare Junkhead, and the Media Rewind podcast, and also president of the Kansas City Horror Club.
So that is a very strange story. Kansas would be a weird location for a sighting, but the way that he describes it makes me think of how people have described the chupacabra. Thank you, Genius McGee, for hanging with us for a minute and sharing that. Obviously, for anyone into the horror genre, check them out. They're funny and they have a great show. Oh, I was going to throw in here too. For anyone who does visit this area of Wisconsin, they've really begun to embrace the whole idea of the Beast of Bray Road and just kind of taken the whole thing in. So they have a lot of curio shops dedicated to this and
A brewery.
and they have a restaurant, I think, named for the Beast of Bray Road, in which they make Beast of Bray Road cookies. So get you a cookie.
And a beer.
Get up there and get you a beer and a cookie, a wolf cookie.
Do you
There's
want-
that. As usual, thank you to anyone who is listening, and please don't forget to press the subscribe button and listen to us weekly as new episodes will be up every Monday. Check out our website, www.bigfootforbreakfast.com, and after you've listened to a few episodes, please don't forget to rate us and comment on the show on iTunes. These things keep the show going and let us know what you think, because for real, we want to know what you think. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you'll stick with us
Forever
and ever.
and ever. We all Bigfoot for breakfast. You want a cookie?